Don't you turn against me.
I felt a great disturbance in the Force, as if millions of voices suddenly cried out in terror and were suddenly silenced.
You're not with me, then you're my enemy. You turned her against me!
You have done that yourself.
Release your anger. Only your hatred can destroy me.
I hate you! Bring balance to the Force, not leave it in darkness! You were the chosen one!
Hello, and welcome to Who Shot First, a Star Wars controversy podcast, your one-stop shop for all controversies that have plagued the Star Wars universe.
I'm your host, Alex, and with me is our other host, Ethan.
And today we get to talk about George Lucas's favorite character, Jar Jar Binks.
Is that his favorite character? Is that confirmed?
That is confirmed. He has said it multiple times.
Is he just saying that to troll everybody? Because that
can't confirm or
possibly be
deny,
true.
but I believe that's his official statement. But
Okay, well, that's a travesty.
Correct. So we are now in episode 4 of our wonderful podcasting awesomeness.
Yes, we're rolling along.
We're rolling along, and we're slowly developing and getting better, I think. And
That's right.
Yes, we will see how this all ends up.
Yeah,
But
yes,
yeah,
we will.
we are going to focus on Jar Jar Binks in the Phantom Menace, as this is part 2 of our Phantom Menace controversies. We'll be doing 3 parts. Next week, we'll be doing midi-chlorians, so that'll be fun. Continuing with this, what do you think, Ethan, of Jar Jar Binks?
Oh, I can't stand him. I think that, I get that you wanted to have like the goofy slapstick kind of character and stuff, but he sticks around too long, and he adds virtually nothing to the movie other than guiding the Jedi through to the Gungan city. And I'm blanking on the name of that city now. But if they had just left him there, then I would have been fine with the character. Like, okay, yeah, he's kind of annoying, but okay, he served a purpose. He got them to the city, and that was it. Then he stayed behind because we need a guide through the water to get there. He didn't guide them at all. He offered nothing to the sub or anything like that. He was just totally useless. The entire movie, he's just a constant drag on the characters. I get no enjoyment out of watching him in any of the scenes, and it's just I don't like the way he talks. I don't like the way his stupidity. His stupidity is exhausting. It's just not a fan.
Not a fan.
Not a fan.
I will also say I find that interesting. I will say that both of us are not huge fans of his because we were both the target audience of Jar Jar Binks when it came out. We both were kids at the time when it came out. So I find that interesting that neither of us like him really. But there are a lot of people who do enjoy his antics and him as an alien.
Yeah.
And there's other theories that we'll discuss. So yes, both of us are not huge fans. I will do my best to give you the arguments for him. And then we'll go into some negatives. Just letting everybody else know beforehand, I let Ethan know last week that we were doing this and that there are criticisms of Jar Jar being a racist character, and he had no idea that had happened. Had not heard that. So
yes, I was. Yes, I was unaware, but then I suppose the more I think about it and analyze the character from that perspective, it makes sense. I can see how. Yeah.
Correct. But again, you are the person who it was aimed at, of the young kid, and so to not think a ton about it. So, yep.
Right.
So let's get started with our positive.
All right, let's get the positives out of the way.
This is where the fun begins.
The biggest argument for Jar Jar is that he was designed for kids. His antics and all that kind of stuff was designed for kids to love him.
Right.
According to the Hollywood Reporter, Jar Jar was loved by many children, but for the most part was despised by fans of the original trilogy who felt the character was too out of place. They're saying that most fans who were kids loved him, and people who were older, who it was not aimed at, found out that they liked him less.
Yes.
George Lucas actually talked to the BBC's Newsnight in 1999 about the character, insisting that Jar Jar Binks' poor reception was because he'd made a film for children, something older Star Wars fans didn't want to admit. And besides, he'd added, didn't some people hate characters like R2-D2 or the Ewoks in the earlier films? The movies...
Who hated R2-D2?
I don't actually know, but
Yeah.
according to, this is according to George, direct quote from George, the movies are for children, but they don't want to admit that. In the first film, they absolutely hated R2 and C-3PO. In the second film, they didn't like Yoda, and in the third one, they hated the Ewoks. And now Jar Jar is getting accused of the same thing.
Seriously? People didn't like Yoda? That's what he's claiming?
That's what he's claiming.
That seems far-fetched. And I don't know. It's hard for me to believe that nobody liked Yoda, having watched the whole Empire Strikes Back and seeing how, he's goofy in the beginning, but turns out wise and amazing later. I don't know.
I can sort of see people having like, why is there a puppet here? And like in the initial reactions, but I don't see anywhere near any kind of the vitriol that the Ewoks or Jar Jar got. Like R2-D2, C-3PO may have gotten like small criticisms, and just like Yoda, I think, got small criticisms, but he's trying to loop them all together. But
yeah.
I don't deny that he's aimed at kids. And I won't deny that a lot of people, especially back when these films first came out, a lot of people didn't admit that these movies were for kids. They were like, this is for me, the guy who watched the original trilogy, and which we have already discussed. There's some validity to it. There's some not.
Right.
So the next great thing about Jar Jar Binks is that he was actually incredibly innovative for the time with CGI. He is a completely CGI'd character, the first of his kind. So according to Den of Geek, so he was the poster boy for the movie's next-gen visual effects, a walking embodiment of how CGI could revolutionize the storytelling in the Star Wars universe. In pre-release interviews, Lucas often talked about his frustration at having to deal with the constraints of prosthetics, miniatures, and other analog effects in the original trilogy. It was when he saw the CGI dinosaurs at play in his old friend's Steven Spielberg's Jurassic Park that he came to realization. Now, finally, his wildest storytelling dreams could be realized. Lucas's original plan was to have Best perform his scenes as Jar Jar in a full costume, with only the character's head replaced using CGI. It was only after $100,000 had been spent on the physical Jar Jar outfit that Lucas's effects team came to the conclusion that the effects shots could be completed more quickly if the character was entirely computer generated.
Wow, $100,000 Jar Jar Binks costume.
It's crazy to me as well, just thinking that it's cheaper to do the whole thing than to just do a piece.
Right.
Even back then, at that time, like you're like, we got to do the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That is crazy.
So it was that ILM began creating a groundbreaking process of performance character and animation to turn Best into Binks. On set, Lucas encouraged Best, a naturally physical performer, to play up the clumsy comic angle of his character. This was, after all, a Gungan, an amphibious creature banished from his home because of his hapless nature. On land, he's even more prone to getting into trouble. So those quotes were from Den of Geek, but yes, that's George's feeling that he was a comedic character and aimed at kids.
I mean, I don't deny that. It's just that it just seems so over the top. You can have characters that are targeted at kids, that still serve a purpose to the plot, and not basically, you know what I'm trying to say, that like, you can have characters that are goofy and funny that aren't super annoying.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we'll go a little more into that in the negative side.
Okay.
To explain that. Yes. But so now with all that out of the way, the biggest two takeaways are it was incredibly innovative for him to do a completely CGI character. He was the first of his kind, and that he is aimed at kids. And he's designed to get laughs from kids.
Yep.
Those are the two big hallmarks for Jar Jar Binks. Now we're going to dive into the not criticisms, but this is the people saying that he's not racist.
That he's not racist.
Not racist. There are arguments, because we'll get into the arguments of that if he is, but there's a lot has been said about how he is not racist.
Right.
And so in order to get into both of those, we will see that.
Okay.
But according to George Lucas himself, how in any credible way could you take an orange amphibian and say that this was a racial stereotype for African Americans? Just because somebody has an accent doesn't make them a stereotype of a particular thing. Critics aren't creators, they're destroyers. And I don't think any creative person will ever argue with me about that.
Okay. So absolute.
Yes.
Yeah.
That came from a specific Salon interview that we're going to talk about later, but he was at a college around 2003, 2004, and a student asked him about Jar Jar, and that was his response. And he was very upset with her, and basically she derailed the entire class, because he was there helping with the class, and it derailed it. He was so frustrated with the question that he just kind of went on a tear about critics. But yeah, so
yikes. Okay.
So we'll see. We'll get into that a little deeper. According to IndieWire, Ovid Best, this quote comes a little bit more from how Ovid Best was treated, which again, I totally and completely unequivocally disagree with how he was treated, because he was at a point where he considered suicide with how awful fans were to him. And that is completely unacceptable. Yeah. Because again, absolutely. it wasn't him doing it. It was George, the character itself. He was just doing his job. Yes. So
exactly.
Right. But according to Ovid, I was called every racial stereotype you can imagine. There was the criticism of being this Jamaican broken dialect, which was offensive because I'm West Indian descent. I'm not Jamaican. So Ovid was upset that he was being called Jamaican when he is a descendant of West Indian. But of the argument. But according to that was from IndieWire, and in the Baltimore Sun, the folks who see racial and ethnic stereotypes in the Phantom Menace are making leaps of logic so far afield that they can't even be measured in light years. The folks who rail against perceived racial and ethnic stereotypes in Phantom Menace should simply admit that they just plain old don't like the movie.
Okay. They aren't really arguing. I mean, they're just, I don't know, they're not really arguing. They don't really have a whole lot of argument as to how it's not racist. It's
correct.
Just sort of declaring that it's not, and
Yep. That's kind of how it goes. Yep.
Yeah, right. I don't have a counter argument, but you're just wrong. Yeah.
Yep. And then in a CNN critique of the film, this is Best saying, Not only do I think that has no validity, I think it's really stupid to anyone to put their own prejudices and their own homophobia on a complete fantasy movie. People who go through life with race-tinted glasses looking for some sort of offensive statement, offensive image, offensive gesture, when in fact, maybe it's just a character. Now, I will say that was a long time ago. So
I was just going to
back
ask.
in 2004, that one was quite a bit long ago with current events happening. That was his statement back then. I don't know how he feels now.
Right.
I think he would probably be a little more open-minded with other people's thoughts on
and feelings,
and feelings and how they perceive life.
Yeah.
So that is all I have for positives. There is one thing before we dive into the negatives. Have you heard the Darth Jar Jar theory?
Oh, that he's a Sith Lord?
Yes.
Yes, I've heard that.
Okay. Do you know any of the information of like that there's actual stuff that makes sense? Have you seen any like videos or anything?
Not videos, but
or like articles.
I've seen right, articles and sort of like tweets and pictures of how, or memes of how it's supposed to make sense, but nothing concrete.
The biggest argument for it right now is that Jar Jar Binks, the reason Jar Jar Binks seems so weird in Phantom Menace, or actually, what do you know about the Darth Jar Jar theory? Why don't you let me know? What do you know about it?
Oh, just that he was like a Sith Lord, and that something about how like he orchestrated things in Star Wars in the later episodes, or like was behind a lot of things or something like that.
Okay.
Nothing too specific.
Nothing too specific. Okay.
Yeah.
The theory is that the reason Jar Jar feels so odd in Phantom Menace is that he was deliberately written that way. He was deliberately written to be this clumsy oaf, in the sense that he would become a Yoda-type Sith character. In the very beginning of Empire Strikes Back, Yoda is the like not using his force powers, and he's just like a cranky old man and hitting and everything. And then it turns out to be that it's an act. Yeah. Because there's actually some like, have you ever seen the movie or heard of the movie Drunken Master?
No.
Okay, so Drunken Master is a type of like martial arts. It's an actual type of martial arts where it looks like you're drunk, but you are actually doing everything on purpose. And so it's an actual, and there's a video that I will attach to our show notes and everything, and I can send it over to you. But it shows that there are a lot of his actions, especially when in the first movie when he's when he's shooting things with the droid on his foot and stuff like that, and how lucky he gets with that.
Right.
And how he's moving and stuff like that. It lines up a little bit of it being Drunken Master. Also, a lot of his life is like he's just lucky. And according to Obi-Wan, there's no such thing as luck. So the argument is that he's subtly using his Sith powers, but George then rewrote the character after such huge backlash that he got. The argument is that he then saw, oh my gosh, everybody hates Jar Jar. And so then he rewrote the character. And so there are pieces that are still in the rest of the film, like when Jar Jar gives emergency powers to Palpatine. That's a piece that was still written in, and Jar Jar was supposed to have a bigger role.
Wow.
In the rest of the films.
Now, is this okay, so is this all speculation though? Or is that?
Oh, it's complete speculation. But there's people who have done like research and have looked at like in-depth thought process of how George works, and like they've thought about things where. So like, yes, it's complete speculation. There's never and again, it can't be anything else because if he was rewritten, if he was supposed to be Darth Jar Jar, he was rewritten.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah.
So you're not a fan?
Given the character I've come to know, it just seems almost absurd to think that he's a secret Sith Lord. And just I've seen pictures of or people who have created drawings of what that might look like. Yeah. Just seeing his his hooded figure with his ears coming out of the cloak is just in his duckbill mouth. It just looks ridiculous. So I'm not sure it would have worked even if it had turned out that way. People might have, if it turned out he was a Sith Lord and it was written that way, there probably would have been a whole different round of backlash from that people are like, are you kidding me? This bumbling idiot turns out to be like a Sith Lord. I could see people being upset with that, had that become a reality, or the first time we'd seen that.
Okay. Well, that's perfectly leads us into our next section, because our next section are the negatives of Jar Jar Binks. And so here we go.
All right. Kick us off.
I got a bad feeling about this.
So we're going with our simple and unfunny. So that's where our leadoff comes in, is right. A lot of people think he's just too simple of a character, too dumb, and completely unfunny. According to Cheat Seat, Jar Jar Binks was written off as another example of a Lucas character becoming too simplified for an intelligent audience.
Yes.
So he's asking the audience to be completely idiots in order to. That's what this argument is. I'm not saying, again, when we're saying this, like, I'm not saying people who like him are idiots or anything, but it's that argument of, yep, you have to be a simpleton to like him.
Right.
Again, he's unfunny and doesn't really fit. So Jar Jar's sense of humor clashed with what was otherwise a tragic fable of empire, replete with political entanglements and dull Senate meetings. That was according to Screen Prism, because, like, he is this funny character, supposed to be funny character if it's just going off and being crazy, and then we're putting him into a sudden Senate meeting or a Senate chamber, and you're like, what is this? Right.
Absolutely. Why is he even there?
So
the fact that he becomes a senator to Naboo is just a whole other thing.
Yes. So the best actual like example that I found for somebody to explain like why Jar Jar Binks is so unliked, I found on like a Quora.com. So that's a website that asks questions, and somebody asked like, why is Jar Jar Binks so not liked? And so this person on there made a list and gave us a list. So I'm going to read you his list here. So Lucas decided the best way to make Jar Jar funny was to use every shortcut he could come up with. The Comedy Writer's Handbook contains a number of quick cheats, and Lucas used them all. He made Jar Jar stupid. The guy is just as dimwit and clueless in every way. He made him a coward. Jar Jar is scared of everything. He made him greedy. Jar Jar's appetite gets him into trouble all the time. He made him clumsy. If he can fall off something, he will. He gave him a silly voice. He threw in some PG-rated scatological humor. Jar Jar gets farted on and steps in poop, because stepping in poop is apparently funny.
That's, hilarious.
He also gave him a stolen catchphrase, which he overused, "How wooed." All of which meant Jar Jar had no sense of character. He was just a collection of comedy shortcuts, which were all overused whenever possible. He wasn't funny. He was just a mess.
Yes. I agree with everything on that list. It's everything you just said is true of the character. All of these sort of run-of-the-mill, seen it a million times character traits of a goofy, supposed to be funny character. And you're right. This movie is treating us like we're idiots with this character.
The argument is it's treating us like we're children.
Right. But
because it is child-based. That's the argument.
Yes. Well, that's not how I perceive it. Yeah.
So that's basically the most written out piece of it. Or there's actually one more great quote from urbo.com. So to compare C-3PO and Jar Jar Binks, which according to George, everybody hated C-3PO too. C-3PO was always frightened, but he wasn't stupid. Jar Jar is stupid. In short, fans struggled to see any silver lining when it comes to an obnoxious and ineffective Jar Jar Binks. There's no real redeeming or valiant quality underneath his bumbling persona.
Nope.
So that's the final piece we have on that. Do you have any more thoughts on his simpleton aspect criticism?
I think I've said all I want to say about.
All you want to say about that?
Okay. About his ridiculousness. Yeah.
Okay. Another criticism is that the character himself Lucas had too much control over the character. So this is where it helps out Best a lot, because a lot of people criticized Ovid Best, and this kind of explains of like Ovid Best actually didn't have a ton of control over the character. He did it exactly how George wanted to. So according to Best, I saw an innocence in the character. Best said in an interview with the Philadelphia Inquirer. I saw the honesty of the character. I saw the awkward kid who didn't fit in. I was definitely the kid who didn't fit in. That's why I identified with the character. George had a very specific idea in mind how the character was supposed to go. He very much wanted him to be more of a Buster Keaton than anything else. I gave him a lot of stuff. I was really, still am, into martial arts and acrobatics. So in my mocap audition, I was doing backflips and high kicks. It was more like athletics, and he kept trying to pull me back from being so athletic and being a lot more lanky and long and silly. I eventually picked it up at the end of the mocap audition, and he was like, okay, and walked out of the room. So Best saw an innocence to the character and identified with like sticking out and tried to put his own like flair on it. And George kind of told him to not do that.
Yeah, man. See, that's, you really feel for the guy when you read stuff like that. Like he tried to make the character something out of this character. And yeah, no one deserves the backlash and the heat he got from that.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah.
So, are you ready to dive into the race stuff?
Okay. We'll tread lightly.
Tread lightly, but yes.
Yep.
So according to Cheat Sheet, from the outset, the assumption has been that Jar Jar Binks was just an annoying comic foil and a near racist one. Many pointed out the egregious West Indies type of language Jar Jar uttered and how inappropriate it was in times of more racial sensitivity.
Are they talking about like him saying stuff like Misa and like what?
Just of like how he sounds. He sounds like he sounds Jamaican.
Yeah. Okay.
He makes those intonations, stuff like that.
Okay.
I
can see that.
Yeah. So this is where I told you I was going to blow your mind. So Peter Serafinowicz, I'm saying his name wrong. He is the voice of Maul in Phantom Menace. And this is his opinion on Phantom Menace as a whole, but again, pieced with Jar Jar. It reminds me of if you're watching Channel 4 during the day and there's an old black and white film on and someone's in blackface and they just bought this film for £8 to show and nobody's checked it. It was like the most racist film of the 20th century.
Wow. That's what he said?
That's what he says about it. Yeah.
Okay. That's crazy. I certainly didn't know that people had such. I guess I didn't realize just how controversial this character was, because when it came out, I was just a kid. And, I didn't understand stuff like that, and I guess growing up, it never really came up. At
Well,
least
you
to
don't
me.
watch it very often, do you?
No, I
Yeah.
maybe watch it once every 2 years, if that.
If that. So
Yeah.
again, you're not seeing the new pieces, but yeah.
Right.
Then, according to CNN, Michael Dyson, a professor of African American Studies at Columbia University, was interviewed about Jar Jar, and he states there was something about his demeanor that suggested blackness, and that suggested, more specifically, stereotypical blackness. I think that I immediately knew that there was some stereotypical elements to this character that suggested black culture. The way he spoke, the way he walked. Even when he said Misa, taken very quickly, it could be like massa, massa. What I'm suggesting is that George Lucas has tapped into unconsciously some racist and stereotypical conceptions of blackness that need to be identified. Hold on a minute, we find this problematic. A big thing that he's saying there is that he's not necessarily saying George Lucas is racist.
Right.
He's saying that George Lucas has just unconsciously tapped into some things that he has seen that
yes.
And this is kind of what we're dealing with today, of the unconscious racism or stereotyping.
Right. Right. Yeah, I really should go back and rewatch the whole movie now, just to sort of see the character with new eyes and new perspective now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I'll watch those scenes again and have a new understanding and of where people are coming from.
Yes, because there are a lot of people that, and I don't know how much history about, but they do there's a lot of connection back to African American minstrels in the early 1920s, especially, of blackface, people in blackface doing the stereotypical, in that they thought African Americans were stupid, and they did that stereotypical act. Right. And so they very much, there's a movie out called The People versus George Lucas. There are a lot of people who don't like it because they view it as a lot of people a lot of fanboys being mad at George Lucas. There is a portion of the film that talks about Jar Jar Binks and kind of relates him back to of how there is a bit of racism. And again, not saying that he deliberately was like, yep, we're going to be a racist character. It's that he just, it's in his brain. He was just like, I want to do this, and this is funny and stuff like that. And you're like, oh, this is problematic here. Sure. And I think that's one of the biggest things that a lot of people have a problem with. And especially with that, the interview that I talked about earlier with the girl who brought up issues with him. It's not, we're not, when people are being from what I've read and found, and George's reactions and everything, he is one of the worst film critics, or he cannot take criticism.
Yes. Yeah.
And so when people bring up, we think this character has problematic elements, he immediately goes into defensive mode and immediately just says, nope, not racist. I don't know what you're talking about. You're terrible. And basically he thinks they're calling him racist. And at the time they weren't. They were just saying hey, these are problematic elements that you should analyze and look at and address them and say hey, I didn't realize that he was this. I didn't realize I had these thoughts, and I didn't realize he came out that way. I'm sorry that you perceived him that way. Because again, it's not how you or I perceive something. If there's a whole, like both you and I are white, and if we watch something we don't perceive, we're like, we could watch something and go, yep, that's totally fine. And then somebody else that we know who's African American or Asian or Mexican or whatever, they could watch something and go, that seems like that's demeaning to me.
100%.
And you're just like, okay. And we can't just go, well, I don't feel demeaned, so it's not racist.
Exactly. Right. Right. We can't tell them that it's not racist when we have no idea.
Right. And so it's, again, that kind of thought process that needs to be brought into. We need to think about it. But in that article, so he got really, really angry at her. Like this, George got really angry at this writer, and basically said, like he actually like pulled her aside after the class and said, "You hurt my feelings."
He said that.
He did, according to her,
Okay.
which I totally believe. And according to her, she was not necessarily trying to call him out and say like, "Hey, this is a racist character." She was more asking him, how do you respond to this kind of perception and stuff like that? And his perception immediately goes to negative and just how terrible. To finish it up, that article, she states, accents in and of themselves may not be stereotypical, but it's the overall image of Jar Jar that smacks of racism. His buffoonery, gait, appearance. One journalist thought his ears were reminiscent of dreadlocks, and word choice all combined to make him offensive. Lucas refused to even entertain the possibility his work might contain such stereotypes. You can defend each piece on its own. Yes. You can defend accents. Okay. Yep. You're not racist if you have an accent. You're not racist if you're stupid. You're not racist if you do these things. But because you put them all together, that's what makes it offensive.
Yes.
So. And
I think that he can't even acknowledge that fact, or that he did anything wrong, or even unintentionally, which I'm assuming it was unintentional. But the fact that you can't even take a step back and look at it from their perspective, and admit, oh yeah, you know what, I can see how you can see how that looks now, and maybe I should have done something differently. And it just kind of surprises me a lot that he's not even willing to do that.
Yeah. We're gonna go deeper into George Lucas the person. He's gonna have his own couple episodes, just because there's just so much about him to talk about. Yeah. And not to diminish this kind of criticism, but George can't take criticism from anybody. Right. He like anything, he immediately defends. So just because this has to do with race or anything is not specific to him, but it's still something that needs to be talked about.
Absolutely.
So, heavy topic, eh?
Yeah. Only took 4 episodes to dive into the controversial, like the real heavy duty controversial stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
But we will get happier or not as deep, I guess.
Yeah, or intense.
We'll not get as intense as next time with midichlorians.
Oh boy, my favorite.
Tell us how you really feel.
I hate them. But we'll get there.
We'll get there.
We'll save all that bottled up frustration for that episode.
Correct.
All right.
So that's our show. Never tell us the odds.
Never tell us the odds.
Never tell me the odds.
You can find us on Twitter at WhoShot1SWPod. That's WhoShot1SWPod. And you can find us on email with WhoShotFirstSWPod@gmail.com. That's WhoShotFirstSWPod@gmail.com.
People are counting on us. The galaxy is counting on us.
Solo, we'll figure it out. We'll use the Force.
That's not how the Force works. Oh, really? You're cold?
I don't know. I have a bad feeling about this.
I felt a great disturbance in the Force, as if millions of voices suddenly cried out in terror and were suddenly silenced.
Don't you turn against me.
Before the dark time.
You underestimate my power!
You thunder against me!
You have done that yourself.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Chancellor Palpatine is evil! From my point of view, the Jedi are evil!
Release your anger. Only your hatred can destroy me.
Bring balance to the Force! Not leave it in darkness!
You're not with me, then you're my enemy. Now you have become the very thing you swore to destroy.
You are the chosen one!